All right, so the sixth Democratic debate took place last night, and I have to admit, I was wrong in my prediction about who the mainstream media would be coming out saying was the definite winner. There are some articles that I've saw and read over that say that Pete Buttigieg was a winner, but they also look at him as a winner and a loser. But there seems to be one clear person that they say won the debate last night. It's what I've been seeing on more and more news articles. Now, this doesn't have to be your personal, agreement. This is just what news is coming out and saying about all this. And of course, it seems like, I guess, the pressure on Mayor Pete's been a little too hard. They really don't want to go the Elizabeth Warren route, and she's tanked a little bit also. I predicted she could have one little moment. I said I would be surprised if she did, and she did, but I thought there was some chance she may come out of left field with a little bit of, firepower, okay? But that seems like they have jumped back, and I must admit, he didn't seem like he was as asleep last night as he has been in some of these other debates. It seems like they have now jumped back on the Biden bandwagon. And the reports are coming out saying that Joe Biden definitely, he was the winner from last night's debate. Now, before we get into some clips, because we're going to review some of the things that were said during last night's debate, Bernie Sanders had a very good moment you will see in one of these clips. He also missed an opportunity to spike the football, and we're going to be looking at that in the very first clip. We'll discuss it all afterwards, but you'll see what I'm talking about. I think he kind of fumbled the opportunity to make his point. And Andrew Yang, just as I predicted, you go to PBS's YouTube channel, because this is where the debate took place, right? I think they've got 2, maybe 3 clips of Andrew Yang on their YouTube channel, and one of them being his closing statement. But there's an additional clip of Andrew Yang that either him or someone that supports him shared out that I've spliced in here as well. Unfortunately for Andrew Yang, I don't feel like with the limited amount of time he had, I think in one of these clips you'll see he did a good job. Another one of these clips, I facepalmed, man. I was like, what are you doing? Really? And we'll discuss what it is in a little bit. So let's just jump into these clips. I'm going to let it play through, and then we'll discuss afterwards.
Moving to health care, an issue that voters tell us every day is still the #1 priority for them. Senator Sanders, you've spent plenty of time discussing and defending the merits of your Medicare for All plan, but the reality is that if Republicans retain control of the U.S. Senate, or even if Democrats win back a narrow Senate majority, your plan as constituted probably would not have the votes to pass Congress. So the question, Senator, is if Congress rejects your plan and the American people are looking to you for leadership on this issue, are there smaller, specific measures that you would take immediately to expand coverage and decrease costs as president?
Well, Tim, at a time when we're spending twice as much per capita on health care as any other nation, when 87 million people are uninsured or underinsured, when 30,000 people are dying each year because they don't get to a doctor when they should, and when 500,000 people are going bankrupt because of the dysfunctional and cruel system that we currently have, you know what? I think we will pass a Medicare for All single-payer system, and I will introduce that legislation in my first week in office. Now, to answer your question, I think when we go out to the American people and tell them that right now we have got to take on the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry, for example, which in some cases charges us 10 times more for the same exact drug as is charged in this country. When the American people understand that Medicare for All expands Medicare to cover home health care, dental care, eyeglasses, and hearing aids, and does it at a cost far, far lower than what some of my opponents are talking about, you know what? We're going to have the American people behind us. We will have Congress behind us.
Thank you, Senator Sanders.
Yes, Senator, pay premiums
Whoa,
or
guys,
payments.
hey.
First time I did this.
Okay, that's true. I'll say this. First of all, Bernie, I promise when I am your president, I will get our pharmaceutical bills done. And we have worked together on this time and time again, and I agree with you on that. But where I disagree is I just don't think anyone has a monopoly on bold ideas. I think you can be progressive and practical at the same time. That is why I favor a public option, which is a nonprofit option to bring the cost down. And yes, it does bring the cost down immediately for 13 million people, and then we'll expand coverage to 12 million people. But here's the political problem. This fight that you guys are having isn't real. Your fight, Bernie, is not with me or with Vice President Biden. It is with all those bunch of those new House members, not everyone by any means, that got elected in that last election in the Democratic Party. It is with the new governor, Democratic governor of Kentucky, that wants to build on Obamacare. And the way I look at it, if you want to if you want to cross a river over some troubled waters, you build a bridge. You don't blow one up. And I think that we should build on the Affordable Care Act.
She
Thank you,
mentioned
Senator
my
Coburn.
name.
Senator Warren, we would
She
like to bring
mentioned-
you in.
She took my name in vain.
Oh,
She hurt my feelings.
never do
I am
that,
crushed. Can I
Bernie.
respond?
Never, never.
My fight, Amy,
45 seconds, Senator
all
Sanders.
right. My fight, Amy, is not with the governor of Kentucky. My fight and all of our fights must be with the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry, with the greed and corruption of the insurance industry. These guys last year made $100 billion in profit, and tens of millions of Americans cannot afford to go to a doctor tonight. The day has got to come, and Joe is not talking about it, Amy is not talking about it. The day has got to come, and I will bring that day about when we finally say to the drug companies and the insurance companies, the function of healthcare is to provide it for all of our people in a cost-effective way, not to make massive profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies.
I need to interject one thing, and then I'll finish letting the rest of it play through. But I'm afraid that knowing how my mind works, if I wait to the rest of this and then try to lump all my reaction to one thing, I may lose these points. So I'm going to go ahead and throw them out there now. First, that very first clip, that's where Bernie fumbled. Okay. Now, what did he say? Spot on, man. He's 100% correct in what he said, even in that first clip before Amy jumped in and gave her little speech, okay? Everything he said was correct, but it was not the avenue to take for the question that you were asked, Bernie. This is why, in my opinion, there's still so many people who are so skeptical, not on the issues I've raised about Bernie Sanders. We'll take everything I've said about Bernie Sanders and set that aside for a moment, because mine doesn't come down to the policy. Mine more or less comes down to how much backbone do you have to actually fight the fight you're talking about fighting. We saw you fight these fights for many, many years. And if I were looking at the Bernie Sanders from over 10 years ago, I'd be sitting there saying, okay, yeah, this is the guy. The more modern Bernie Sanders, I've lost a lot of respect for with this rollover game he's playing for the Democratic establishment, because they are certainly going to be no ally of yours once you get into office, okay? Now, I know people are going to take that comment and say, well, if they're not going to be an ally, why would they do this? Simply put, you're the Democrat president, they're the Democrat Party. If they vote you into office, there is more pressure put on the Democrats to then do what I'm about to explain. But what they said was, how are you going to get Medicare for all through? Because as things stand right now, even if the Democrats take the House back, you probably won't have the vote. So it seems to me what they're describing is a majority in the Senate, similar to what, or I guess a plurality, basically. It's not a full majority. You would have like a little over 50 votes, but you don't have 60. And that no Republican would vote for this. So how do you get past that 60 vote threshold? So basically, it seems to me the way that they were framing that was that whole David Pakman argument that, oh, you got to have over 60 votes. And do you really think that's going to happen? Ha 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 ha. Guess again. What has Bernie said about this in the past? Bernie, here was your venue to make the case. Let the people hear it, because they may not have heard this argument yet. Now, we've heard about the profits. We've heard about their greed. We've heard about their corruption. And we've heard about what needs to be done, as in getting Medicare for all through. What many people haven't heard come out of your mouth, Bernie, is how you intend to get that process done, because we keep hearing the pushback. It won't get passed. There's not enough votes. You haven't detailed how to do it. Well, you have, but you haven't in a venue like this. Budget reconciliation. The same way the Republicans got their tax cuts through. They didn't have to have 60 votes. They were, and the filibuster, they were able to get it through on a budget reconciliation. You've suggested that before. Do it with this. Do it with this. Make your case. You had the time. Instead, Bernie, you gave us the same old song and dance we've heard for 5 debates. And longer than that. And his reason as to why it would get passed wasn't budget reconciliation. It's just simply the fact that, I expect that they're just going to do the right thing, and that once we make our case to the American people, they'll want, okay, well, Bernie, hey, you've been making your case to the American people for some time now. More and more people are coming around to your idea. But even though more and more people are coming around to the idea, what are the establishment doing? They're not saying, that's what the people want. Okay, fine. No, the people who are buying the establishment say, we don't want this. Put out something, put out attack ads, put out some kind of other plan, attack his, promote yours, we'll promote yours, something to shut this crap up, because we don't want this, and so you need to attack it every way possible. That's exactly what they're doing. They're not falling in line behind your plan all because it became popular. And now their scare tactics have started to, in some cases, dwindle away at the numbers of people who do support the plan, because they think, you're just going to take away my plan if I've already got my plan, and stuff like that in a country that's used to having a choice in products. That's a big part of our capitalist society here, being able to have a variety of things. When you start to talk to them about, the government just has control of the entire kit caboodle, and you don't get the choice anymore, and what you have will be taken away. Not everyone's a policy hawk, man. Not everyone's a policy hawk. When they hear that, they go, don't like that. Okay, this is your chance to make your case. And while you make good points, they're the same good points you've been making over and 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 over again. Time to put something new in the conversation, man. Make the case how you're going to get it through without the 60 votes. You didn't do that. You had the chance to take that question and spike the football. You tripped over the football. Great points, not the time for them. It's time to put something new into the conversation. Especially, as I've said before, for people like yourself and Andrew Yang, who are going to, now you're going to get more time because of obviously, they can't ignore how high up in the polls you are. Andrew Yang's the one who really got the short end of the stick. But even they're not going to try and give you as much time as, Buttigieg, Biden, Warren, people along those lines. They're going to definitely give you the time, but they're still going to focus on those and let them constantly go back and forth to each other a lot more. Okay, so Bernie, you got to make your case, man. We've heard those talking points. It's time to make your case with some other facts and evidence. Because eventually, when the argument you keep making in these debates is the same thing people hear over and 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 over again, you start to sound like too much of a broken record. They're like, so what, does this guy not actually have a plan? Because what this sounds like is he's making the same sort of, broad brushstroke promise that every other politician makes. We're going to get it done. How are you going to get it done? Well, we're just going to get it done. I think once I get elected that the seas will part and it will be done. That's what it's going to sound like to the average American who doesn't watch and do research like people like me and other YouTubers and a lot of our viewers do, okay? The average American, the average, the other boomers out there, okay, who don't go surfing through the internet, okay, They're not going to stop and be, reading through all these articles like how it's going to end. It's like, okay, they asked you a question and you don't seem to have an answer. Yeah, those were good points, but you're missing one thing, Bernie. The answer to the question about how you're going to get it passed. Your answer was an assumption that politicians are going to do the right thing. Ooh. Okay. Point 2 before I resume clip here. Okay. Amy Klobuchar's whole build the bridge argument. Now, Bernie, I think, did much better in this clip. He definitely, knocked it out of the park this time. Okay. He had a great comeback on that one. But oh God, Amy. Woo. We're trying to build a bridge over troubled water. When you have to cross over troubled water, you build a bridge. You don't blow one up. Oh, wait a minute, Amy. Let's examine that analogy for just a second. If you've got to build a bridge, then that would imply that there is no bridge there, right? And if I'm blowing a bridge up, then that means that there's some bridge there I don't want there anymore, right? But if I'm having to build a bridge, then that would imply that there was no bridge there in the first place. A little bit of a problem with that analogy. However, I think we can make some sense of it for you there, Amy. I think we can make this point much more clear and that people can understand. I know you're not going to agree with this, but I will clarify your analogy for all my viewers out there. Because you see, there is a bridge there. And we do need to build a bridge. Because the bridge that is currently there needs to be blown up. Point in case, the bridge that is there, which you're talking about building upon, okay, that's Obamacare. This bridge is rotted. The wood is rotted. Planks are missing. And you can't build upon it because the structure is already so weak because it was never that great of a bridge in the first place. That's why it hasn't lasted. You can't build upon it because everything you need to join those boards to is rotted. You attach it to it, you know what it's going to do when you go across? People are going to start collapsing through those boards because it's rotted. You know why? Because Obamacare is a disastrous failure. It never did what it should have done for a lot of working class people in this country. It didn't provide health care for many people. Okay, millions and millions still couldn't get health care. And people like myself who couldn't afford the health care prices got fined every single year for not having health care, but also not going to a doctor. Again, people who've watched this channel know I went to the doctor earlier this year for the first time in like 8 to 9 years. Okay? And that's because I didn't think, there were probably some times I should have gone to the doctor. Definitely, if you watch my channel, you've heard my story about some of the accidents I've had, one with my hand. I probably should have gone to the doctor. I'm that old school kind of guy. I'm like, no, one, I don't know if I can afford the bill, and two, I don't want to do something that I can't pay for. If I can in some way take care of myself, I don't want to walk into a hospital for something and then not be able to pay the bill. And I'm not the kind of guy that wants to feel like I stole something. You know what I mean? I want to be able to pay for what I'm doing. Okay? So I just haven't gone. And I had to go earlier this year because I got so sick, upper respiratory infection and whatnot, that I had to go. I had no other choice. Okay? So yeah, that being said, Obamacare, miserable failure. So it's an old rotted bridge. Now, Amy, what happens when you have an old rotted out bridge you need to get rid of so you can build a newer, better bridge? I'm no bridge builder and I'm no construction expert, but I do know when there's an old bridge that needs to go away, they blow it up and then they build that new bridge. So you're correct, Amy. We do need to build a bridge. We got to get rid of the old rickety one that ain't worth a damn first. And Amy says that, her public option that she's in favor of is going to bring healthcare costs down for like 13 million Americans or something like that. Yeah, we know exactly who that's going to be too, Amy. That's going to be the people who are rich and healthy. Because the private insurance companies are going to be all over them like hogs on slop. as we say down here in the South. Okay? They are going to be all over them. Yes, we want to cover you. Why? You're low risk and you got plenty of money. And the reason we particularly, even if you're unhealthy and got plenty of money, we'll probably still take you because you'll be able to afford our premiums and we'll still give you a good deal. But we want you out of the government program because by you not paying into that government program and being exempt from paying into those taxes, again, the difference between Tulsi Gabbard's plan and Klobuchar and Buttigieg's plan, they get on theirs, they get exempt from paying into the system. By not paying into the system, they're going to load the sick and poor off on the government. What is that going to cause? More people that the government have to pay for because there's no spread of the balance. It's less money, but almost just as many sicknesses they got to pay for. So it's going to be a completely underfunded system. It's going to crash and burn. It's going to completely fail. And then the insurance companies and everybody else will be sitting back going, any day now. They're going to be counting the time down until that system fails. Once it fails, guess what we go back to? Because the politicians are going to make the case, along with the wealthy people who are going to run the attack ads. This was a colossal disaster. Should have never worked. You were better off with what you had in the first place. And voila, we are back to where we started from because they rigged it to fail from the start. So yeah, Amy, that bridge you're talking about building would be just as crappy as the first one. They would both need to be blown up. So why don't we just blow up this one and build a good one now?
Vice President Biden.
Yes.
You've been reassuring voters that things will return to normal once President Trump leaves office, that Republicans will have what you call an epiphany and come to the table to work with the Biden administration. But given everything that you have seen from current Republicans, what evidence is there that things will change?
Look, I didn't say return to normal. Normal's not enough. Normal, in fact, we have to move beyond normal, whether it's healthcare, the environment, whatever it is. We have to build on what we had started in our administration, and that's been interrupted very badly, number one. Number two, with Trump out of the way, it's not going to change things in a fundamental way. But what it will do is it will mean that we're in a position where he's not going to be able to intimidate the base. His base is not going to be able to intimidate those half a dozen Republicans we may need in other things. I refuse to accept the notion, as some on this stage do, that we can never get to a place where we have cooperation again. If that's the case, we're dead as a country. We need to be able to reach a consensus. And if anyone has reason to be angry with the Republicans and not want to cooperate, it's me, the way they've attacked me and my son and my family. I have no love. But the fact is, we have to be able to get things done. And when we can't convince them, we go out and beat them like we did in the 2018 election in red states and in purple states.
Thank you, Mr. Biden. I want to switch topics to you, Mr. Yang. A new question. The Democratic Party relies on Black, Hispanic, and Asian voters, but you are the only candidate of color on the stage tonight, and the entire field remains overwhelmingly white. What message do you think this sends to voters of color?
It's both an honor and disappointment to be the lone candidate of color on the stage tonight. I miss Kamala, I miss Cory, though I think Cory will be back.
I look at this a different way. When we were in the last debate, Mayor, you basically mocked the 100 years of experience on the stage. And what do I see on this stage? I see Elizabeth's work starting the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and helping 29 million people. I see the Vice President's work in getting $2 billion for his cancer moonshot. I see Senator Sanders' work working to get the veterans bill passed across the aisle. And I see what I've done, which is to negotiate 3 farm bills and be someone that actually had major provisions put in those bills. So while you can dismiss committee hearings, I think this experience works. And I have not denigrated your experience as a local official. I have been one. I just think you should respect our experience when you look at how you evaluate someone who can get things done.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Mayor, I'll give you a chance to respond.
You actually did denigrate my experience, Senator, and it was before the break, and I was going to let it go because we got bigger fish to fry here. But you
Oh,
implied
I don't
that my
think we have
relation-
bigger fish to fry than picking a president of the United States.
You're right. And before the break, you seemed to imply that my relationship to the First Amendment was a talking point, as if anyone up here has any more or less commitment to the Constitution than anybody else up here. Let me tell you about my relationship to the First Amendment. It is part of the Constitution that I raised my right hand and swore to defend with my life. That is my experience, and it may not be the same as yours, but it counts, Senator. It counts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Senator Klobuchar, you have 45 seconds to
I
respond.
certainly respect your military experience. That's not what this is about. This is about choosing a president. And I know my view of this is I know you ran to be chair of the Democratic National Committee. That's not something that I wanted to do. I want to be president of the United States. And the point is, we should have someone heading up this ticket that has actually won and been able to show that they can gather the support that you talk about of moderate Republicans and independents, as well as a fired up Democratic base. And not just done it once, I have done it 3 times. I think winning matters. I think a track record of getting things done matters. And I also think showing our party that we can actually bring people with us, have a wider tent, have a bigger coalition, and yes, longer coattails, that matters.
Thank you, Senator.
I got to respond to that. Senator, I know that if you just go by vote totals, maybe what goes on in my city seems small to you. If you want to talk about the capacity to win, try putting together a coalition to bring you back to office with 80% of the vote as a gay dude in Mike Pence's Indiana.
15 seconds.
Mayor Buttigieg, you had your hand raised. Can't help but feel that might have been directed at me. And here's the thing. We're in the fight of our lives right now. Donald Trump and his allies have made it abundantly clear that they will stop at nothing, not even foreign interference, to hold on to power. They have already put together more than $300 million. This is our chance. This is our only chance to defeat Donald Trump. And we shouldn't try to do it with one hand tied behind our back. The way we're going to win is to bring everybody to our side in this fight. If that means that you're a grad student digging deep to go online to PeteForAmerica.com and chip in $10, that's great. And if you can drop $1,000 without blinking, that's great too. We need everybody's help in this fight. I'm not going to turn away anyone who wants to help us defeat Donald Trump. We need Democrats who've been with us all along, yes, but we also need independents worried about the direction of the country. If you were a Republican, disgusted with what's going on in your own party, we're not going to agree on everything, but we need you in this fight, and I will welcome you to our side.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Senator Warren, 45 seconds to respond.
So the mayor just recently had a fundraiser that was held in a wine cave full of crystals and served $900 a bottle wine. Think about who comes to that. He had promised that every fundraiser he would do would be open door, but this one was closed door. We made the decision many years ago that rich people in smoke-filled rooms would not pick the next president of the United States. Billionaires in wine caves should not pick the next president of the United States.
Mr. Mayor, your response.
You know, according to Forbes magazine, I am literally the only person on this stage who's not a millionaire or a billionaire. So if this is important, this is the problem with issuing purity tests you cannot yourself pass. If I pledge never to be in the company of a progressive Democratic donor, I couldn't be up here. Senator, your net worth is 100 times mine. Now, supposing that you went home feeling the holiday spirit, I know this isn't likely, but stay with me, and decided to go on to PeteForAmerica.com and give the maximum allowable by law, $2,800.
would that pollute my campaign because it came from a wealthy person? No, I would be glad to have that support. We need the support from everybody who is committed to helping us defeat Donald Trump.
We would like to bring in everyone, but obviously, Senator Warren, I'd like to give you a chance to respond.
I do not sell access to my time. I don't do call time with millionaires and billionaires.
Sorry, as of when, Senator?
I don't meet behind closed doors with big dollar donors. And look, I've taken one that ought to be an easy step for everyone here. I've said to anyone who wants to donate to me, if you want to donate to me, that's fine. But don't come around later expecting to be named ambassador, because that's what goes on in these high dollar fundraisers. I said no, and I asked everybody on this stage to join me. This ought to be an easy step, and here's the problem. If you can't stand up and take the steps that are relatively easy, can't stand up to the wealthy and well-connected when it's relatively easy when you're a candidate, then how can the American people believe you're going to stand up to the wealthy and well-connected when you're president and it's really hard?
Judy.
Senator, I've got to respond. First of all,
Mayor, we're going to
if
give you one more
say
chance to
no
respond.
to a donor, then you have no business running for office in the first place. But also, Senator, your presidential campaign right now, as we speak, is funded in part by money you transferred, having raised it at those exact same big-ticket fundraisers you now denounce. Did it corrupt you, Senator? Of course not. So to denounce the same kind of fundraising guidelines that President Obama went by, that Speaker Pelosi goes by, that you yourself went by until not long ago in order to build the Democratic Party and build a campaign ready for the fight of our lives, these purity tests shrink the stakes of the most important election.
Judy.
We'd like to bring everyone in. We'd like to bring everyone in.
We have a question here from a professor right here at Loyola Marymount. There are nearly 200,000 DACA recipients, so-called dreamers, in the state of California, more than any other state, including several students right here at LMU. If you win and you reinstate DACA through executive action, another president could just overturn it again. So will you move on a permanent legislative fix for dreamers in your first 100 days if elected?
Of course I would. I'm the son of immigrants myself, and I know that dreamers are essentially Americans in everything but this legal classification. I just want to return to this conversation because I think it's core. Our country is deeply misogynist, and most all of us know that. Money and men are tied together. That's where I thought Elizabeth was taking the conversation. The fact is, strong societies would elect more female leaders. Strong men treat women well for the same reasons. I'm on the record saying that you need both strong men and female leaders in government, because the fact is, if you get too many men alone and leave us alone for a while, we kind of become morons. So it's related to our campaign finance rules, because right now the fact is we operate in a fundamentally anti-woman marketplace, and that includes the marketplace for politicians. If we were to put 100 democracy dollars into the hands of every American voter, instead of 5% contributing, you'd see that rate skyrocket to 50 or 60%, and you'd have many, many more women who would run for office because they don't have to go shake the money tree in the wine cave.
Thank you, Mr.
Could I
Mayor.
address-
I'd like to follow up. The question, again, Mr. Yang, was about dreamers. You pledged to move on a permanent legislative fix in your first 100 days. Dreamers say that they are frustrated by Democrats' failure to prioritize their status in deal after deal. So why should dreamers trust Democrats now?
I believe everyone on this stage would do the right thing by dreamers in the first 100 days. I would make it a top priority. I'm the son of immigrants myself. The fact is, almost half of Fortune 500 companies were started by an immigrant or children of immigrants. Immigrants make our country stronger and more dynamic. And immigrants are being scapegoated for issues they have absolutely nothing to do with. If you go to the factory in Michigan, it's not wall-to-wall immigrants, it's wall-to-wall robot arms and machines. We have to send the opposite message of this administration. And as your president, I think I could send a very clear message where if you're considering immigrating to this country, and I'm the president, you would realize my son or daughter can become president of the United States.
That's the opposite of the current administration, and that's the message I would love to send to the world.
Thank you, Mr. Yang.
Okay, so now I think it's starting to become more and more clear to people just why Pete Buttigieg didn't come out of that debate, the declared winner, right? So definitely some strong shots fired by Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren at Pete Buttigieg. But before I get to that, you'll probably notice some of the editing I did on another clip. The first Andrew Yang clip. Andrew, what are you doing? What are you doing? That question about being the only one on the stage of color. What are you doing? You miss Kamala Harris? Really? The prosecutor president? You miss that? Did you miss the part that Tulsi exposed about Kamala Harris? Did you miss the part about her keeping people locked up past their sentence dates? Did you miss the part about her not turning over information that would free people on death row? You must have not heard that, huh? Because you miss her being on the stage. And you also miss Cory Booker. Oh, good God, Cory Booker. Now, there's a few things I can agree with Cory Booker on, but overall as a candidate, no. And clearly, a lot of other people feel the same way. Now, you could say, oh, the same goes for Tulsi. Tulsi should have been in this debate. First of all, the DNC not recognizing a poll they've recognized in the past is the reason she didn't qualify for this debate in the first place. Okay? Cory was on the verge of having to completely drop out not too long ago because of a money issue. My opinion, he's going to be one of the next ones to go. Okay? He's like, oh, I miss Cory too, and I think Cory's going to be back. Why do you want Cory Booker to come back? I don't understand that. What's the point? You've still got, Cory Booker included, 15 people running for president. Count them. Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, Andrew Yang, Tom Steyer, Tulsi Gabbard, Michael Bloomberg, Deval Patrick. That's 10, right? Julian Castro. Okay, whatever this glib guy is. Okay? And there's probably a few other names that are still eluding me that Delaney. Delaney still hasn't dropped out at this point. So that's 13 of the 15. I'm sure that I must be forgetting, did I mention Bernie Sanders yet? I can't even remember at this point. But yeah, last time I counted, 15 people still running for president. I would think, Andrew, you'd want to thin the herd of some Cory Bookers. Especially when you've got more people jumping in the herd this late in the game. Why do you want more people to hang around? Do you not realize that the more people are in the race, the more divided votes are spread, which means when it actually comes voting time, that divides the vote out even more. So when you need to try and pull more and more votes in, the best way to do that is to get rid of some of those stragglers, like Cory Booker's, like Julian Castro, like Deval Patrick, all these guys, Delaney. Now, Delaney's voters would probably go behind whatever voters he has, that is. They'd probably go flood behind a Klobuchar or whatever. But get them out of the race. Get them out. Get them out, okay? That's how you open the window to draw in more support for them, because maybe you're somehow their second choice. Get them out. Okay? That should be the game plan, not welcoming them back in. Okay? So now let's get back to the Pete Buttigieg thing. Man. One thing that I do think I was correct about in my prediction, when I went on Big Talk, Little Talk earlier this week, was I said, because Israel pointed out when I said that I think he would win. And he said, well, unless they push back on him. Well, they definitely pushed back on him, but what am I still correct about? At least from what I watched. Now, maybe you've got a different opinion than I do. They launched attacks, but they're not attacks that can really hit the hardest, I guess is the best way to put this. They may be true. They may be 100% factual. They may be 100% correct. And yes, it may give him a black eye. But he is able to counterpunch everyone on that stage except for Bernie Sanders and possibly Andrew Yang. And Andrew Yang is not an attack dog. He's not going to go after it. So exactly what I said was going to happen, that Andrew Yang wouldn't go after him, that didn't happen. Did Bernie Sanders do it? No. Bernie Sanders did exactly what I said he would be doing, and that is the same old song and dance all night long. Now, again, is it a bad song? Is it a bad dance? Absolutely not. Lovely song, lovely dance. We've seen it 100 times. Okay? You get, people start to tune you out when they just hear the repetitive thing over and over and over again. They don't want to listen anymore. They're like, okay, yep, all the wealth to the top 2%. We're going to pass Medicare for all. And we got to do a Wall Street speculation tax. Millions of Americans are going bankrupt from health care. So many are uninsured. It's resulting in them dying. They can't go see a doctor. And we need to have a revolution and reform our political system. And the best way to do healthcare is Medicare for all and the single payer. And yeah. Did I miss anything? No? Okay, yeah, I memorized it. That's exactly what people are starting to do when they hear Bernie Sanders. Because there are points he could make to rebut, as I said earlier, these people asking these questions and framing them a certain way that could inform those people that they may go, ooh, something new. Okay. This actually answers this guy's question. But Bernie fumbles. I don't know what it is about him, but he fumbles his opportunity to do that. I don't know why. It's the same old thing. And again, it's good points. I'm not trying to demean or diminish what he's saying. But it's the same things he says every time. You don't win to his base, to the people who love him, to all those burners out there, and Tulsi Gabbard supporters. I know you think Tulsi Gabbard supporters are the scum of the earth, a lot of the Bernie people out there. But to the Tulsi supporters, they say, yes, we agree. We agree with what you're saying. Love it. But to everyone else who he needs to be winning over, from the Biden crowd, from the Buttigieg crowd, from that Warren crowd, they're sitting there saying, yeah, oh boy, here goes the old grandpa. Dementia's kicking in. He's going to give us the same old song and dance all over again. We're going to hear about, having to walk uphill both ways. Same old story. That's the disrespectful tone many of them start to take towards Bernie Sanders when it's the same old story every time. It starts to come across, especially when you're looking at an old white guy doing it, as the old grandpa who always tells you about the stuff from his heydays that you heard for years and years and years growing up. And every time you meet him, he's telling you this story like it's the first time you've ever heard it before in your life, and there's nothing new to it, okay? So Bernie spent all his time doing that instead of pulling his own heavy lifting and trying to kneecap Pete. So he left it up to Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren. Oh, God. Now, Klobuchar got some good shots in at Pete Buttigieg, but Pete Buttigieg put the burn on her ass right at the end of it. Okay? Agree with what he said or disagree with it. I think it was a fairly good point that he made, even if the votes were small in comparison. I'm a gay man running for office in Mike Pence's Indiana and won re-election with 80% of the vote. Now imagine what kind of coalition I had to put together to do that. You want to talk about I'm not a good candidate? look what I had going against me in this state and won that much. Just being fair here, folks. Ooh, that was a burn. And you could tell even Amy Klobuchar was just like, oh crap. Like you could tell she was literally she'd been trying to come back at it. She was literally stuck like a deer in headlights there for just a few seconds, and then finally at the end just start shaking her head. It's like she had to process, oh God, what do I do? Okay, I'll just shake my head a little bit. Okay. Then we get around to Elizabeth Warren and the whole wine cave thing. Applaud Elizabeth Warren 100% for bringing that up. One thing that no one brought up that I've at least heard yet, because I wasn't able to watch the debate real time, second shift. Okay. Work second shift. So, and unfortunately, most of the time they do these debates, they're not on days that I'm off. So I kind of get screwed out of that. So I have to go back and watch, clips and try to piece it all together that way. Okay. I didn't hear anybody bring up the whole McKenzie issue. Tulsi Gabbard brought that up on the Hill not too long ago on Hill Rising. Since you were on the Attack Pete trail, why didn't anybody bring that one up? But nonetheless, no one brought it up, at least not from what I've heard. If anyone's got the clip, by all means, please share it with me. But she goes after the whole wine cave thing. And again, beautiful attack, beautiful points, 100% correct, okay? Problem. What does he come back at her with? And this is exactly what I said about anyone who does try and push back on Pete Buttigieg. They're all too dirty, grimy, and filthy. He can push back on every single one of them, which is exactly what he did. She went after him for the money. He went after her for money and said, okay, you've all of a sudden became a Puritan this election cycle. But, Liz, now he didn't bring up this, but I will. You were talking about taking that big money in earlier, because she really laid into him, because he's sitting there defending taking in this big money, how that we have to have it to beat Donald Trump, and it just simply does not corrupt us. Well, one, that's a load of bull, and we'll get back to that in just a moment. But then he came back at her and said, okay, you were going to take money, and you rolled money that you gathered in the very method you're currently complaining about. You took that money that you gathered for your Senate campaign and rolled it over into this presidential campaign. So while all the funds that you've taken that have been gathered since you announced, yes, those are gathered this way, but you took a lot of that money that you're complaining about that you gathered the last time around and you're spending it now. So does that make you corrupt? Oh, and by the way, I'm the only one on this stage that isn't a millionaire or a billionaire, meaning that, I'm not as wealthy as you all are. And again, let's remember, people, no one on that stage except for Tom Steyer or there may be a couple of other people. Or Andrew Yang. Yeah, Andrew Yang. No, everyone else has been politicians, right? Politicians, Congress, senators, they don't make $1 million. So clearly you've been getting that money through other means. It's very interesting. It's very, very, very interesting. Okay, now, probably people are going to point towards Bernie's with the book and things like that, the whole book and whatnot. But let's be honest. A lot of how they got that money being bought off. So when you attack Pete with it, he's going to fire right back at you and say, okay, now let's talk about your dirty laundry. Okay? So they were good points, but they were points he's going to fire right back at you and say, oh, wait a minute. You coming at me? You coming at me? Let's talk about you. Because you do the same thing. And I actually have less money than you. He's able to counterpunch. He's able to counterpunch far too well. And you tell Elizabeth Warren, she wanted to get her talking points out there. She wanted to make her case. But when he counterpunched, what did she do? Did she punch back? Did she refute it? No. Why? Because she can't. She can't. He's telling the truth. He's telling the truth. You may not like Pete Buttigieg. I don't like Pete Buttigieg. But the man's telling the truth. He's able to counterpunch. And he's going to. This is why it's so critical to have someone like Tulsi Gabbard on that debate stage. because she would have gone after him. She would have brought up McKenzie, and what's he gonna, target her on? Oh, well, she took some military-industrial complex money once upon a time and all that stuff. Yeah. But again, it's not going to land on Tulsi the same way his counterpunches are going to land on everybody else. Okay? Because Tulsi Gabbard has the grassroots movement for sure, and she has not hinted any point in time about taking that money. And again, one other person that he could make that statement to, technically two others, I'll say Yang and I'll say Bernie Sanders. Yang won't attack, Bernie won't attack, Tulsi would attack, but she wasn't on the debate stage. And so I think the opportunity to really take Pete Buttigieg down was greatly missed. Now, wrapping this up, at the end, they went on to say one more thing. They said that it was Joe Biden who was the winner of the debate, basically. That's what a lot of the news articles are saying. I watched the Joe Biden clips. I don't know where you're getting that one. I mean, maybe you all have a different opinion from me, but Joe Biden had a better performance than he's had the last couple of times, but I would by no means say that he won this debate. I just don't see that anywhere. He made some decent points, but I don't think they were anything that really made the case to the American people why he would be the best president of the United States. Now, who did a lot of the people say were definite losers in the debate? Because a lot of people said like Klobuchar won this debate too. Like the top three winners were between Biden, Yang, and Klobuchar, and Buttigieg, kind of a winner/loser. Okay? They put Bernie definitely in the loser column. Okay, and a part of me sees why, but a part of me still says he still got a better message than anyone else on that stage made. A part of me says the fact his message is still better than anybody else's, he should be the winner. I see where they're calling him the loser, though, because it's the same message we keep hearing. There's nothing new. There's nothing new. You could have played a recording of Bernie from the last debate. It would have been almost the same thing. That's a problem. Bernie's got to freshen it up a little bit, okay? I'm not saying you can't keep pointing out the things you're pointing out. Add something that actually relates more specifically to the questions that you're being asked, like how you going to get it through. And the answer to that is not, politicians are just going to do the right thing because it's the right thing. That's not the right answer, Bernie. No. The answer is budget reconciliation. Budget reconciliation. The same way the Republicans got their tax cuts through. Are you kidding me? Yeah, it's possible. It's very possible. What are you talking about? That argument's weak sauce, man. Ask me another question. That's what you got to do. And Bernie's just not doing that. So, me personally, who do I think won last night's debate? Honestly, I think Andrew Yang had a couple of good points, but I think he had a serious fumble with the whole, being the only person of color question, where he basically says he wants Kamala Harris and Cory Booker back. I'm like, oh God. Whoo. Yeah, that went over with me, like somebody crapped in a punch bowl. Okay, that did not sit well. I'm like, oh, why would you want that back? So that didn't sit too well. So that being said, I would probably have to give Andrew Yang about a second or third place, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, because by no means do I support either one of them, but off of fire and spunk, I guess you could say, alone, not really being attacked and counterpunched. Now, Pete Buttigieg counterpunched, but they at least still came to the table and tried to make the case to, I guess, in some weird way, be the voice of reason. I'm going to put first place to Elizabeth Warren. And I absolutely hate that, because I do not like Elizabeth Warren. But just being fair and being unbiased here, off what I've seen, it seems to me like she had the better performance. Okay. Second place, and God, this is arguably worse than putting Elizabeth Warren in first place. Even though I just crapped all over her analogy from earlier, it wasn't refuted. At least not from what I saw. I didn't see much pushback on the analogy that I broke down. Okay? I didn't see much pushback on it. And so I think, unfortunately, because there was no pushback, I've got to give the second place, in a manner speaking, I would say probably, I'll put second place at a tie between Pete and Amy. I was going to say Amy. I'll put Pete and Amy at a tie for second place. Andrew Yang in third place. Okay. Bernie, I know everybody's like, well, what? You're ranking them above Bernie Sanders? Guys, I agree with Bernie Sanders' message, but it is the same thing every time. Let me put it this way, okay? On my channel, I think there's something that we could all agree with, right? Let's say that I came on my channel and I said we need to get money out of politics and explain to you why. We need to reform Big Pharma, and I explained to you why. Okay? And we need to reinvest back into the middle class, and I explained to you why. Okay? And then every single time I make a video, I say those three things. For all the viewers out there who may like Bernie Sanders and may be upset about what I'm saying, I want you to be honest with me. If all I did, because I'm sure you agree with what I just said there, right? That all those things should be done, just like I agree with Bernie Sanders. But if that's all I said every time I came on this show and did a video, and that's all I ever talked about, how many of you would keep watching this show? Would you like my videos? You think more people would be subscribing to my channel so every day they could tune in and hear the same thing over and over again? Of course not. Of course not. So if you really believe that I'm not being fair when I make that criticism of Bernie Sanders, you're only, you're fooling yourselves. You're fooling yourselves. You really are. Because if you want Bernie to do better, you have to push him to do better. Therefore, you need to point out criticism and you need to give him constructive criticism when he needs it. If you really care about the guy, don't just kiss his ass. Say things that say, hey, Bernie, turn up the gas a little bit, man. Seriously. Turn the heat up. You need to get the cooking, and you need to be making some of these points also. We love the rest, but you need to focus in on that. And I don't see him doing it. And therefore, because it was the same performance as we've seen every time else, I can't, well, in all good faith with other people, even though their arguments were flawed, there was not pushback on the flawed argument. So they were able to make that case to those voters who may not be policy watchers and constantly reading through. They just hear it and there's no pushback and they say, oh, yeah, okay. So again, people, look at this. Take a step back from what your opinions already are and look at it from the sense of, if I was a voter and didn't know all the things that I know right now about politics, who tended to make cases to the American public and made pushbacks on other candidates and didn't get a lot of pushback themselves? And I think when you look at that, you then start to see who that narrows down to. Who made the attacks, who made cases, who didn't sound like a broken record, and also didn't get pushed back on by the Bernies, by the Yangs. You see what I'm saying? So that, to me, that's sort of the meter that I used. And by no means am I happy that that's the results that I came out to. I'm not thrilled about that one bit at all, because that is horrible that would be the choices. I would love, even though for all my criticisms of Bernie Sanders, I would love to rank him as number one. I heard the same old thing. And I'm going to be honest. I've said it multiple times on this channel. I'm the straight shooter. Bernie's got the spicing this thing up a little bit, man. I'm not going to give him number one just because I agree with his policies when he came out and did the same thing he's done in 5 other debates. Being fair, being honest, can't do that. You want to win first place, you've got to give the performance. And the same performance we've seen 5 times, that ain't going to cut it.